delightful thing to do when you go down the pub, just sit there drawing. It's wonderful. Anyway, sorry, I digress. I am an artist, do forgive me for being an artist. Let's go to the next slide. This is a maquette. I always do maquettes. Yeah, I work out in my head how on earth the cutting pattern's going to work. Just like you speed carver guys, yeah? You've done it thousands of times. Yeah, you know the form intuitively. You have muscle memory, like a dancer. Yeah, it's all about movement in you and the object. So I make a maquette, that's only a small thing, and then I make the final object. Yeah, from one piece to the other, the progression. And that is the final object at the show. And that's its that's its final resting place in front of the pond of the village where the tree was felled. And that community love that object. Every time I drive past, there are people sitting on it, bouncing on it, because I've cut a third of the way through the stem of the tree. It's become a giant oak spring. And the kids just sit there going boing, boing. And in our obsessive world of health and safety, yeah, I had to put a disclaimer on it. This is not a toy. Yeah, do not bounce. But of course everyone does.
That only provides suggestions for some.
Yeah, well, that's right, yeah. Totally, Brad. Okay, this is an object. This is an example of how I started working the wood, utilising the properties of the wood itself. From my green wood working experiences, as we all know, it's long and short grain. And you can't see it, but it has the most amazing texture on the outside, where I've done repeated cutting across the grain, very close together, and then use the lever to snap all the pieces off. And it creates this amazing sheared surface that looks like some kind of alien cog system or something. But it is me there experimenting with properties of wood. But after the chain and doing a few other things, I got a commission by a lovely lady who owned a farm, and this was the start of my abstract sculpting career. A lot of people have asked me, how did I get involved in abstract? Well, they say, I wish I could do abstract, but I don't know where you're coming from. How did you get to that point to think in that way? Well, this lady asked me to do a sculpture. Excuse me, I must have a little drink actually. In the vein of a very famous British sculptress called Barbara Hepworth. And Barbara Hepworth was revolutionary at the time. It's all about piercings and curved planes. And I had to do a critique to make a presentation to this lady. So I did it, and it has stuck with me ever since. If it was on a big screen, I'd read it out to you, but I won't. But it's all about the idea of positive and negative space. Yeah? And the tensions you create in between those surfaces and those volumes. Yeah? Okay, so I did this critique, and this was the original Barbara Hepworth that I decided to go with the style of. And we found an oak tree, and I've got my first little video for you. I'm sorry it's not on a big screen, but this is the kind of work that I then turn the pictures into a little film. It doesn't work, does it? You can't see it.
Okay. Okay. You guys all wait for watching this film.
What a shame. So I've actually selected an oak tree on the property. It's all a holistic experience. This sculpture is John's memorial. Her husband died when he was an old man, but he's happy, but he had gone blind. And so this single aperture that I created in this piece of wood, the piercing of a large piece of material, yeah, it was like his metaphysical, his inner eye. And it gave him vision, and gave vision to the family to remember him for his strength of character. Yeah, and it's a beautiful, beautiful connected experience. By the time at the end of the day that we installed it, we were all crying. Yeah? And for me, that is why I do what I do. Because it connects people with themselves, with the land, with the earth they come from. Yeah? It's a timeless, wondrous, magical thing. So I moved on with my 3D. I got a computer. My dad was so pleased. He thought my son's normal at last. He he's got himself a computer. So these are 2D graphics, but designing 3D objects. Using multiple layers of shapes all stacked on top of each other, I created extruded forms. Yeah, which is very interesting actually, because Bob's talking after me. Yeah, about, I believe he told me about some special tooling, which is the kind of thing you would use to create extruded forms actually. It's like a spindle moulder, but for a chainsaw, I believe. I hope I'm right in that, Bob. I don't need to jump in. So I was doing it in a 2D world, and then I got 3D software. And these are the kind of objects, and they're called, I use things called NURB curves, which are naturally, they're a kind of mathematical shape, yeah, of how you draw curves on a computer. And they make these beautiful organic forms. You know, and to you guys, this might seem a bit strange. I don't, you know, put loads of detail into it. It's all very smooth and very minimalistic. But it was because of that influence of Barbara Hepworth's work that I went this way. And then I would produce for the client, I would produce presentations. I can rotate the object in a 3D world and make a series of photographs that turns it into an animated object, virtual object, turn it on the spot. Yeah, and this is, now I'm showing examples where I've designed an object and this is the realization of it. This is really interesting because it's actually an oak log. Yeah, and as a design problem, I decided the thing about an oak log, making a bench out of it, is if you square it up, you lose a lot of the size of the log. So what I decided to do was utilise the widest part of the log, which is the centre, as the bench. But what I did is cut it in half and turn the two bits back to back. So you utilise all of it, yeah, paying as much respect to the original tree. Yeah, that spiritual connection with the source of the material again. I don't actually have, I actually didn't sell it as it was. I actually pulled it apart and reworked that one, funny enough. It became two of the best pieces I ever made. This is more mad furniture. This is a 500-year-old coppice beech tree. That's what happens if you don't recut eventually. 500 years later, it's like this. They're fantastic. It fell apart and I was left with a piece like this, and this shows you those simplified, there's the 3D model, turning on the spot. That's what I showed the client. That's how I got the price that I want. Such a good tool, marketing tool, to be able to show a client what it is they're going to get in that way. They go, this guy, he's serious about this. Yeah. So there's the log, and that 3D model of the object was modelled within a framework that I have built of the original log. So if you see now, as it's formed, it's actually almost identical to the model. Yeah? And this happens again repeatedly, from that one to that. You can see that the process, this is different, actually slightly different. And I have a little video. Oh, sorry. Again, I'm sorry this doesn't work now without the big screen, but I started actually making little videos that I would have on my website. And this shows the process of creating.
Right.
I'll say that for everybody, Roger. That looked like a little elf running around.
Funny enough, right, my biggest ambition as an artist in my present state is to take dance and chainsaw sculpture together. I tell you, in England we're so nuts